So I'm saying all that to say that when you believe something is possible, you start showing up in your life like it's possible. What's going on, everybody? It's Bryant and I'm back with a new video. You've already read the title, you know what it is. Today I'm sharing with you how I started my photography business. Surprisingly, I get asked this question on almost every single photo shoot. Whether my clients are interested in just how I got started in my career or they're interested in photography themselves, I thought, why not just make this video for anybody who is thinking about getting into photography either as a hobby or trying to make it their full-time business. Now keep in mind, everybody's journey is different. So your journey may be different from mine may be different from the next person. So to give you a little bit of an idea of how I became interested in photography, growing up, I was obsessed with magazines. My mom and my sisters, they had subscriptions to like every magazine that you could think of. I'm talking Jet Magazine, Ebony, People, Vogue, Reader's Digest, National Geographic. If you could think of any popular magazine, they likely had a subscription to it. I'm not gonna even hold you. Every single afternoon after school, I would run home from the bus stop, get in the house, and I'll start on my homework, trying to get through my homework really quickly. And as soon as I was done with my homework, it was face planted in those magazines. I used to take them everywhere throughout the house. It didn't matter if I was in my room, kitchen, most specifically the bathroom. We didn't have cell phones like that back then, so it was a magazine handy. Like, we literally had a magazine rack in the bathroom. We actually need to really get back to that because what a time to be alive. And like, what I really loved the most about the magazines obviously was the pictures. I fell in love with the marriage between like the photos and like the stories they would share. I was so inspired by that. And so I really got into paying attention to like the photo credits to see who the photographers were, go online to find out a little bit more about those photographers. I was like completely invested. We're talking about as young as like a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade me. But going into like middle school and like my early high school years, I started to get involved in extracurricular activities. I kind of pulled back a little bit from like my love of photography, love of magazines. Not saying that it still wasn't there, but it just didn't take priority. My extracurriculars and my friends, they honestly became my life. So senior year in high school, our school district required us to do what's called a senior project, which is essentially where you pick a career path, you find a mentor in that specific industry. Basically, you had to shadow your mentor for, I believe it was like 120 hours throughout whatever semester you had your English for. And by the end of your senior project, you had to do a research paper on the history of the specific industry that you chose, as well as a little bit of information about what it is that you learned. You had to do like this huge presentation with like media, and it was a lot, but it was a really fun experience. I went and sat down with my English teacher. She was like, well, do you have anything that you're interested in? And I was like, well, I've always loved photography. And so she was like, okay, well, there's a teacher here. His name is Mr. Dupree. You should probably go ask him if he'd be your mentor. So I went and asked him to be my mentor. He was so excited about it. And that just really just showed me his love for photography. And so that inspired me even more. And so all he really required that I do is go out and get a point and shoot camera. He didn't really want us to be investing a lot of money on our senior project. So he was just like, what I really want you to learn the most after time working with me is like developing your eye. So of course he taught us things like the exposure triangle. He wanted to like nail in all of the fundamental photography skills that you should actually have before you're wanting to move forward with starting a business. Saying all that to say that it's super important at the beginning of your pursuit of photography to find a mentor, someone you can lean on, ask questions, get some guidance from, further your knowledge, if that makes sense. So after my senior project, I was 100% invested. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I love photography. So as I was starting to fill out my college applications, I was starting to look at schools who had amazing like communications programs because I really wanted my concentration to be in photojournalism. So I started to talk to my parents about it. They were just like, photography is a great career to pursue, but you should always have a backup plan. I don't think that should be your only major. So I ended up just going to East Carolina University. I was like, well, I love math. I could always become like an accountant, or I could end up teaching if I wanted to go that route. Through navigating like being in marching band and then my college coursework becoming demanding, photography all of my creative interests kind of took a back seat again. With hindsight being 2020, I honestly think that my time would have been better spent had I just followed my heart. So I'm saying all that to say that when you believe something is possible, you start showing up in your life like it's possible. And that is powerful because it allows you to be able to achieve whatever it is that you're pursuing. Now, you may share your ideas with people like your family, your friends, your parents. They may not necessarily have the same vision that you have. That's completely okay, but don't let that infiltrate your mind to the point where it changes your mind. So this is where things start to switch up. So moving into spring semester of senior year in college, one of my best friends, Stephanie, came to me and was like, B, I need to take some photos for my graduation announcements. Can you take these photos for me? Mind you, she didn't know that I had like any experience in photography or had any interest in photography at all. I was like, yeah, I'm completely down. Give me the camera, where we going? We're going to that, when we doing it? We picked one Sunday to go out and do her photos, and I'll actually leave a couple of those pictures on the screen here. It was so rainy out. We just got her point and shoot camera. Just had so much fun on that shoot. She was like, oh my God, I love him so much. Like, and just seeing how happy she was with what we created and just really being able to help her to celebrate this specific time in her life, like it just felt so good. I had felt the most fulfilled in that moment than I had felt in any other time in my life. I actually attribute her for reigniting my passion for photography. Like, I can't thank her enough. So Stephanie, if you're watching this, which I know you are, you really take the credit for me wanting to actually start my photography business. Like, you made me fall in love with it all over again. I love my girl so much, my ride or lie. After that session, I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. After graduating, I was just like, I'm gonna start my photography business. Ultimately, I knew if I pursued anything else, then I would be making a commitment to something I knew that I would not be completely happy doing for an extended period of time. So I sat down with my parents again. I was like, look, let them know how I was feeling. And she was so supportive, and she was just basically like, look, if this is something that you're gonna pursue, you're gonna have to give it your all. If you're going to move forward with making this your career, just know that it's gonna be some hard work and you're gonna have to fully commit yourself to it. After we had that conversation, she actually went out and got me another point and shoot camera. And I'm thinking like, okay, this should be good enough to be able to start my photography career.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I remember getting in the car after she got that camera. We had my niece Brooke with us. Took the camera out of the box. I didn't charge it at all. And I just was like so excited. I was like, I'm about to start shooting pictures of everything. I literally turned around into the back seat and took this picture of Brooke. This is not giving me what I want. I put it into Photoshop and I was trying to like make the background blurry to do like some faux bokeh. I was just trying to edit the picture to be able to look the way I wanted it to look. And I was just like, I need a DSLR and I need to invest in some photography equipment. But at that point, I was still just like, okay, well, I have this camera. I literally just took what I had and I just started doing sessions. I started asking anybody I could think of if I could do photos for them. At the time, I was coaching a step team, so I asked them, I was like, hey, look, after practice, can we go take some pictures? Some of them were getting ready to graduate, so I offered to do some graduation photos. I really just wanted to get consistent with offering the same type of experience. I wanted to be able to learn how to communicate on a shoot, how to communicate posing. I wanted to get as much practice as I could. And so I literally was just trying to shoot anything. Just working up the skill of getting people comfortable in front of the camera, that's the biggest thing. I had done a bunch of shoots. I was starting to get practice in. I knew I needed better equipment. And in order to get better equipment, I needed some money. I was like, look, I need a job. I need a job that's gonna pay me a decent amount. That way I can be able to save some money. Even though my parents were super supportive, I wanted to do the bulk of it on my own. I didn't want a handout because I knew that if I invested in myself, then I would appreciate it a lot more than if somebody just gave it to me. And I started to think, where could I get a job but also learn a lot more about photography? So I immediately thought, I'm gonna apply to work at a photography studio. We're talking Olin Mills. If I could have got a job at Lifetouch, I would have worked at Lifetouch, which I did apply to Lifetouch. But we also had a Portrait Innovations, and I remember just being so excited about the job. I posted all about it on Facebook. I posted a little screenshot from my offer email. I learned so much while working there, specifically posing, flow poses. I learned a lot of sales techniques for actually doing in-person sales sessions and selling products. January 2013, I stopped working at Portrait Innovations. I had saved up enough money at that point to buy my first DSLR camera, which was the Canon T4i, I believe. I also got the Nifty 50, the 50mm 1.8. I think I paid like $100 for that. I was ready to get into business and I started charging for my photography session. So the very first thing that I did, I decided to make a website. So I spent like a whole month trying to figure out how to build a website. I had prior knowledge of like CSS and coding from doing MySpace back in the day. Built my website through SmugMug. Literally, I was working like 10-hour days for a month trying to build my website, and it was not even a great site. I always knew that I wanted to tie myself to my business. At the time, I didn't know why. Essentially, I knew that I wanted to be a personal brand. I wanted to be known for the one that's creating the images. So I always knew that my business name would be just my name, photography. So Bryant Tyson Photography. I went on the IRS website. I registered as an LLC. And then I also registered with my city and state. But I definitely recommend doing those two things. It's actually required to be a functioning business. Now, every state and city might have their different rules or regulations for how to actually go about registering your business. You go through something like LegalZoom. I decided to do mine on my own just because I didn't feel like it was like overly complicated. Through LegalZoom, you can kind of have them do all of that for you. And then you also want to figure out what your prices is going to be and what it is that you want to offer. There's a lot of factors that goes into pricing, and that all just depends on how much you're wanting to make, your maintenance budget. You also got to think about paying taxes, how much work you want to do a month, or how much work you're able to do a month. This is something that you're doing full-time or part-time. I probably could do a video on that. Drop a comment below. I'll definitely make that if you guys are interested in that. What is helpful to know is what type of photography you want to do. So during the period of time that you're practicing, maybe connect with local photographers, maybe shadow them, work with them as a second shooter, or being there behind the scenes photographer as they're navigating different types of portrait shoots, just to get an idea of how they work and what their sessions typically are like. And that way you can get a better idea of what type of photography you actually want to do, whether it's portraits, or you want to be a wedding photographer, or if you want to be a brand photographer or fashion editorial. Like, there's so many different lanes, and every photographer shines in like a specific type of photography. So you really want to narrow down what it is that you actually want to do and want to be known for, what you're passionate about. That way you can kind of hone in on what your experience is like, and that will make you a more profitable photographer in the long run. So after I built my website, figured out my business name, registered my business, and figured out my pricing structure, I got out in the community and I started going to any type of festivals we had in the area, going to like any events that we would have in the area, and I would carry my camera everywhere. When people see you carrying a camera around, especially if they see you with a DSLR body because it looks a little bit more professional, they may ask you about it. And so as a shop photographer, I needed people to approach me first. I felt like with carrying around my camera everywhere and making it visible, a lot of times it would spark conversation. People would ask, are you a photographer? And that would allow me to be able to tell them about my business. I'll be able to give them my business card. If they ever had checked my website out and liked what they saw, then they would book me. Especially if it was like a festival, I'll go out with a friend, because again, as a shop photographer, it's very hard for me to approach people. But if I have someone with me, it makes it a lot easier. If I saw anybody that I thought was interesting, or if I liked their outfit, or if they had like a cute kid, or if they were out with their family, which is specifically what I wanted to shoot at the time, be like, hey, can I get your picture? 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, sure, because they want a picture from the day. I would give them my business card. I'll be like, look, you can check out my website here. You can go up there, download your picture. You can use it on social media. Just tag me as the photographer. Then I started getting a lot of word of mouth referrals. Going back to my love for magazines as a child, I loved how the pictures and the stories went like hand in hand. They married each other perfectly. I was like, well, why not just start a blog? And that way I could share a little bit about my sessions. If I went out to an event and shot photos of some of the people, maybe pick some of my best photos and talk about my experience at that specific festival or that specific event. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know about SEO and keywords and how Google works. I just knew that I wanted to share my stories on my blog for anybody that was interested in reading. But what I was doing at that time was building my SEO. So in a matter of months, I was able to rank as #1 on Google for photographers in my area at that time. This started to bring me in so many inquiries. Like every single day I was getting a new inquiry in my email, and like life was good. I was coasting for a long time. And I was just able to keep that up because it was what I loved doing. Going out, having these sessions, taking these photos. I loved going home and just reflecting on my experience during the shoot. It just made me feel like I had my own little magazine, but it was just working wonders for my business behind the scenes in terms of the exposure that I was getting through through SEO and through word of mouth. And in a matter of a year, I was able to go full time with my business. During that time, I switched my website from SmugMug, which I only had them for like a month or two. And then I transitioned over to Blogger, which was Google sponsored. And then I transitioned my blog over to Squarespace, which is where I've been since. I'm gonna sing the praises of Squarespace for the rest of my life because I've been using it since, what, 2014? This is not sponsored by Squarespace, but it will be one day. I'm saying this because I absolutely love Squarespace. I use it for my own website. Just a ton of features. Just a lot different from something like WordPress where you have to get all these different plugins to be able to have a functional site and blog. Like Squarespace does all of that like right out the box. So through building SEO on my website and blogging and ranking #1 on Google, companies like McDonald's found me when they were opening up a new location here in Greenville. Lidl found me. I've received several brand partnerships through my work as a photographer and as an influencer. That paired with the word of mouth marketing, providing an amazing experience to my client. All things that I had honed in on over the course of my career and over the course of me being just a young, aspiring creative really helped me to build the business that I absolutely love. But anyway, I just wanted to hop on and answer that question for you guys. This is specifically for anybody who's looking into getting into photography. If it's something that you love, something that you want to pursue doing, I say absolutely go for it. Just develop a little strategy, use your resources, use some of the people around you. Take the time to learn what you truly love and what you can truly see yourself doing for quite a while, and you can't go wrong with that. Anyway, if you guys like this video, scroll on down the page, find the subscribe button, click subscribe. While you're there, there's a bell icon right beside that. I want you to click that. That way you can be notified each and every time that I post a new video. Check out the description box. There you'll find links to all of my gear. There you'll also find links to my social media so you can check me out on those platforms as well. Again, my name is Bryant. I'm out, and thank you for sticking through this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. I'm about to just turn this phone off. It's so annoying having multiple Apple devices because I have my MacBook set to silent, I have my phone set to silent, I have my iPad set to silent, I have my Apple Watch set to silent. I'm really trying to figure out like how am I still hearing my notifications? Like, I'm so annoyed.